Today, I'll be teaching you how to warm up effectively for your training and showing one example of a warm up that I use prior to calisthenics workouts. Like most things in life, there is no universal warm up protocol that is suitable for everyone. Just like training, warming up should be tailored to the individual based on the type of training the athlete does, their goals, and ability. The purpose of warming up is to prepare the body for the training to follow, optimizing performance and reducing injury risk. The warm-up should predominantly focus on muscles and movements that will be used during the training session and should not cause unnecessary fatigue. Many fall into the trap of doing too much or performing unnecessary exercises in their warm-up. Although the warm-up should be adequate to prepare you for training, it should not take time or energy away from the training session itself. If you're about to perform a handstand training session, 15 minutes warming up by pedaling on a stationary bike is better spent elsewhere, such as warming up the upper body or training the handstand itself. There is often debate about whether or not you should stretch in the warm-up. You may choose to include some stretching in your warm-up, but it is not always indicated. If you have reserves in mobility beyond what is required in the training to follow, your time warming up is likely better spent doing activity-specific drills. There are, however, many times when stretching is indicated prior to training. If the training that follows requires great levels of mobility, it is beneficial to stretch these positions beforehand. Examples of this include stretching shoulder flexion prior to handstand training, straddle mobility prior to shoulder press work, and shoulder extension prior to back lever training. Generally, dynamic stretching is recommended over static stretching, as some studies have shown static stretching to decrease strength and power output in immediate subsequent performance. Conversely, dynamic stretching has shown either no effect or a benefit to performance. It is worth noting other studies have shown no decrement to performance from static stretching, probably due to variability in stretching and testing protocols. The negative effects from static stretching tend to be small, short-lived, associated with holds greater than 60 seconds, and even negated when followed by a dynamic warm-up. Further, effects are nuanced, and when muscle length is examined, static stretching has shown to increase strength performance at the longest muscle lengths, while decrease performance at short lengths. If you're about to perform a bench press training session, long duration static stretching of the pecs immediately prior will likely hinder your training. Contrary to this, static stretching of the adductors and hamstrings prior to training press to handstand will likely improve performance, as this will improve mobility and the training requires barely any strength or power from the legs. Short duration static stretching, such as a couple of sets of 30-second holds, is also a good idea prior to back lever training, especially for people without exceptional shoulder range, as this exercise requires significant force to be generated from the shoulder flexors in a lengthened position. Now that the basic principles of warming up have been discussed, I will show you an example of a warm-up that I perform prior to upper body calisthenics workouts. Generally, I start with an active range of motion warm-up, which involves moving relevant joints through range. The movements should not be aggressive and should be controlled throughout. I perform each exercise with 10 repetitions and give extra attention to any joints that feel tight. This also gives a chance to appreciate how each joint is feeling prior to starting the workout. I start at the neck and work my way down the body, taking the shoulders, elbows, wrists, spine, hips, knees, and ankles through range. Following this, I perform additional dynamic range exercises, focusing on areas of tightness that may hinder my training. For example, if my upper back and shoulders feel particularly tight, I'll perform dynamic stretching for 1 to 2 sets of 10 repetitions, and/or try to improve this range over a foam roller. If the workout to follow requires extremes of range or tension in muscles on stretch, I will perform additional static stretching of these muscle groups for 2 to 3 sets of 30 seconds. For example, stretching the straddle position prior to press to handstand work as mentioned previously. Following my range of motion warm-up, I perform neuromuscular activation exercises for the muscles and movements that are utilized in my training, particularly the wrists and shoulders. As shoulder blade position is important in calisthenics, I perform activation exercises specific to the training to follow. This involves bodyweight resisted scapular protraction exercises prior to horizontal pushing such as planche, scapular elevation prior to overhead exercises such as handstand, scapular depression prior to overhead pulling exercises such as pull-ups, and scapular retraction prior to horizontal pulling exercises like front lever. Each exercise is performed against the resistance of my body weight for 5 to 10 repetitions with 2-second pauses in the top position. This helps to prime the nervous system for optimal scapular position during training, for example, protraction during a planche. After this, I do the same with the wrists with 10 repetitions of wrist push-ups on each side of the hands. This will help activate the muscles of the hands and forearms that are particularly important for balancing handstands. As with all warm-up exercises, these should be short of fatigue. After the wrists and shoulders, I often perform a hollow body, plank, or chest-to-wall handstand hold to prime the muscles required for optimal alignment in the training to follow. The position chosen is reflective of the subsequent training. For example, I practice chest-to-wall handstands, which provides tactile feedback from the wall to familiarize myself with optimal alignment prior to my freestanding handstand work. Hollow body holds are used before chest up movements like front lever, and plank is used prior to chest down movements like planche. I perform the hold of choice for roughly 20 seconds, focusing on the alignment I want to achieve in the training to follow. Beginners will benefit from simpler alignment exercises such as posterior pelvic tilts prior to training. After this, I'm ready to start my training, but before jumping straight into my most difficult exercises, I like to perform 1 or 2 warm-up sets building toward the training intensity. Prior to training straddle planche push-ups for sets of 5, I may perform a set of 6 regular push-ups and a set of 2 or 3 tuck planche push-ups. I hope this has helped your understanding of how to warm up effectively. If you found it valuable, please like, comment, and share it with your friends. Thanks.